This evening we're going to look at the fourth constitution that came out of the Second Vatican Council. Constitutions, as you may well know, are the most definitive, authoritative documents that can issue from a council. The other three you've already been exposed to in this lecture series. The dogmatic constitution on the church, the dogmatic constitution on divine revelation, and on the sacred liturgy. This evening, though, we're going to be looking at a pastoral constitution. And I begin with this particular distinction because Gaudium et Spes, the document on the church in the modern world, is an extraordinary document, a distinctive document from the other documents in so many different ways. It was born out of the council. There was no plan at the beginning to have such a document. It broke, actually, the model for the genres of conciliar documents by being a pastoral constitution. And the struggle to understand what that was went down to the very final days before its acceptance and promulgation on the final day of the council's meeting on December 7, 1965. So it's extraordinary in many ways. And the players in the drama are also some of the giants of the council. We're going to start with Cardinal Suenens, certainly one of the major figures who shaped the agenda and the progress of that council and so much afterwards, including the founding of this institution. He was directly responsible for that event. So there's so much with this, as I'll be reciting some of the names as we go through this process. But I want to begin by just a word about this as a pastoral constitution. This was a new use of the term pastoral. Pastoral, before this time, had been basically an understanding of how to engage in the care of souls, to be a pastor in a parish. And it was seen as applying the dogmas and creeds of the church to the everyday lives of the parishioners. Now that idea is included in this new understanding of pastoral, but this is a much broader idea, one that's caught perhaps best today, for those of you familiar with it, in its Spanish usage throughout Latin America, the pastoral. So it includes pastoral policy. In other words, the whole attitude that one might have in terms of looking at the world and the church's place within it. Second, what is significant is that this is a document about the church in the modern world, not the church and the modern world, or the church over against the modern world, which would have perhaps been the attitude of many prior to the convocation of the council. No, the idea here was to resituate the church, not standing over against nation states as it had done in the last 2 centuries prior to the council, but rather to be engaged deeply in the world. 2 words capture this particularly that appear in the documents and have been part of its subsequent reception. First, dialogue. Dialogue, entering into deep, sustained, and intimate conversation with the world as it is, as the world presents itself. And it's very clear in this document that it was not world in a more restricted sense, that some of the council fathers and the council pariti wanted it to be. So the world, for example, as it's understood sometimes in the Gospel of John, as a world that is deeply fallen and distorted and even inimical to the divine presence. But rather the world as it presents itself in dialogue. The other word is solidarity. While the term appears a time or two in the document, it didn't really come into its full form until the pontificate of John Paul II. John Paul, as we'll see, was a major player in the shaping of Gaudium et Spes as the Archbishop of Krakow, as Karl Wojtyła. He was deeply and passionately interested in this document. As we'll see, Gaudium et Spes was the document he quoted most often from the Vatican Council in all of his many, many works. Gaudium et Spes stood central for him. So it's a look at what the church is in the modern world, not a fortress over against the world, but very much intimately involved with the world in dialogue and solidarity. Indeed, what became clear as this document evolved in the course of the years of the Council, the 4 sessions of the Council, is that it needs to be set alongside especially Lumen Gentium, dogmatic constitution on the Church, about which you've already had a presentation. That these represent, if you will, the kind of two foci of an ellipse which speaks about the Church in the world today. Lumen Gentium, looking particularly at the identity of the Church, how the Church understands itself. And then Gaudium et Spes, how the Church faces the world. So, to use the Latin, it's the Church ad intra, looking at itself, and the Church ad extra, looking beyond this. So the fundamental aspects that came forth in Lumen Gentium are really important for understanding Gaudium et Spes.